Ernesto?
Sí, perfecto.
Ok, perfecto, gracias. English booth, good morning.
Good morning, Mauricio. This is Nancy. Testing 1, 2, 3. Good. Perfecto. Okay, so I'll switch to the other console. Probando 1, 2, 3. English booth 1, 2, 3. English booth. Yeah? Okay.
Thanks. Buenos días, cabina de portugués. Perfecto, sí, gracias. Buen día, Mirna. ¿Cómo está? Ahora subo a saludarte, sí, gracias. Francés, buenos días. Buenos días, te oigo bien. Segunda consola, Cosich.
Bien, un poco bajo, pero sí lo oigo.
Okay. Segunda consola. Ok, gracias, gracias.
document CP/OD-2575/25. Pursuant to Article 43 of the Rules of Procedure, I submit this draft order of business for consideration by the Permanent Council, which, at the request of the delegation of Antigua and Barbuda and distributed to delegations as document CP/INV 0800/25, includes, under item 7, the election to fill the vacancy on the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights, which, with the agreement of the delegation of Guyana, replaces the candidate who had initially been put forth in the original order of business. Accordingly, if there are no objections, we shall proceed to its adoption. Perfect. Adopted. I would like to thank everyone for your agreement, and I apologize for the circulations of different versions of the document, but we want to always share information in a timely manner and very transparently. Before continuing, on behalf of this Permanent Council, we would like to extend our congratulations to Mr. Jose Antonio Cast on his election last Sunday as President of the Republic of Chile. And we wish him every success in the exercise of his 4-year term as stipulated by Chile's Constitution. Prior to continuing with the order of business, I would like to ask the Permanent Council if we may grant a special exemption to the time limit established in Article 46 of the Rules of Procedure in response to requests made by the Delegation of Mexico in order to greenlight under item 2 of the agenda an extension of up to 10 minutes for Ambassador Encina's statement. If there are no objections to this request for extended time limit, it is hereby agreed. And finally, taking into account the length of today's agenda, the chair will call a recess at 1 p.m. and the meeting will resume at 2:30 p.m. This is so that your delegations can organize yourselves as need be to cover the day. So we will now move on to item 2 on today's order of business. This has to do with our welcome to Ambassador Alejandro Encinas, permanent representative of Mexico. And we would like to extend a very warm welcome to Ambassador Alejandro Encinas Rodriguez as permanent representative of Mexico, or the United Mexican States, who presented his credentials to the Secretary General today, Wednesday, December 17th. Ambassador Encinas is an economist. He graduated from the National Autonomous University of Mexico, specializing in development and planning, and has had an outstanding career in professional, legislative, and public service spheres. He has served in the legislature at the federal and local levels, serving as both a deputy and a senator, as well as the president of Mexico City Constituent Assembly. His experience includes the formulation and execution of programs aimed at social development, urban and territorial planning, environmental protection, the promotion of human rights, and has served in roles such as Secretary of the Environment, Secretary of Social Development, Secretary of Government, Chief of Government of the then Federal District, as well as Secretary of Planning, Territorial Planning, and Metropolitan Coordination for Mexico City. At the federal level, he served as Undersecretary for Human Rights and Population Migration, during which time he chaired the Commission for Truth and Access to Justice in the Ayotzinapa case, as well as the Commission for Access to Truth, Historical Clarification, and Promotion of Justice for serious human rights violations. Ambassador Encinas has also contributed to the academic and public debate, authoring and coordinating several publications on human rights, sustainable development, and social and urban issues. Ambassador Encinas, we extend a most cordial welcome to you to the Permanent Council. You, sir, have the floor. And thank you very much to the chair and Secretary General, Assistant Secretary General, permanent representatives and observers, delegates, as well as staff of the Organization of American States. I would like to thank you for the very warm welcome you've extended as I become the permanent representative of Mexico before the Organization of American States. It is my honor to take this position, which was upheld by the Mexican Senate. I am here with the conviction that the Organization of American States must be an effective space for political and hemispheric dialogue, and that it relies on us always sticking to the principles of its foundational charter: mutual respect, solidarity, cooperation, and full adherence to international law. Mexico will continue to defend and strengthen multilateralism centered on in the defense of international law and the promotion and guarantee of human rights, democracy, cooperation for development, and hemispheric security, with a comprehensive vision that addresses the needs of our peoples and recognizes the political, social, and cultural realities of the continent. In a challenging global context, we need the OAS to be more effective, more transparent, and closer to the people. It must prioritize consensus and multilateralism that serves as a point of understanding instead of confrontation. Mexico will continue to actively participate in the organs of the Inter-American system, recognizing that no single country can face the challenges that we all share today. We know our obligations in the Inter-American system and will continue to follow up on cases and friendly settlement agreements and precautionary measures that have been dictated by the IACHR, as well as the generation of international standards having to do with human rights, particularly for those living in poverty, migrants, women, children, Afro-descendant populations, indigenous populations, LGBTQ plus persons, persons with disabilities, and older persons, as well as economic, social, and cultural rights. Specifically, we will prioritize our follow-up for the group of the Friends of Haiti, given the security challenges being faced by our sister country. Mexico will make sure that the work done by this organization are always within its purview and continues to marshal efforts with the United Nations to find pathways to security, sustainable development, always with the buy-in by the Haitian people and the rest of the world. Mexico will continue to strengthen inter-American law, and particularly in the volunteer group and the promotion of international law. We are convinced that the consolidation of norms and the generation of legal standards are essential for peace, security, and the protection of human rights in our hemisphere. We will likewise continue to engage with the voluntary group and follow up for the Inter-American Democratic Charter. This must always be a space for the sharing of best practices, cooperation, and mutual respect. We want to make sure that this is never considered a space for intervention in the internal affairs of countries. Mexico believes that everything must be based on respect, sovereignty, and genuine dialogue. Esteemed colleagues, Mexico will continue to be guided by our constitutional principles and our foreign policy, where we will defend the sovereign rights of states, self-determination of peoples, and peaceful solutions to disputes. Under the guidance of our President, Claudia Sheinbaum, we must respect sovereignty of other states, mutual respect, and cooperation without subordination. Under the leadership of the first female president of Mexico, our work will continue in Mexico's feminist foreign policy, guided by a gender perspective and substantive equality. We are convinced that there can be no full democracy without women's participation. This is the sine qua non for achieving the right to live in peace. I would like to thank you for this very warm and cordial welcome. I will continue with openness, respect, honoring the privilege and the responsibility of representing Mexico in this hemispheric forum, and following on the legacy of Benito Juarez, who says that respect for others' rights is equal to peace. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ambassador, for your words. Once again, we welcome you to what is now your home. I would now like to give the floor to the coordinators of regional groups and other delegations who wish to extend a welcome to the permanent representative of Mexico. Colombia, you have the floor. And thank you very much, Chair. Good morning to the permanent representatives and the officials here. I have been given the honor of extending this welcome on behalf of the Group of 10. So, South American embassies from South America and Mexico. On behalf of this group, I am pleased to extend my welcome, a very warm welcome to Ambassador Encinas, who is joining us today for the first time as permanent representative of Mexico to the Organization of American States and this permanent council. The appointment of the ambassador reaffirms Mexico's historic commitment to the inter-American system and human rights. It is also a valuable contribution to the OAS because of his experiences, his professional life, which have already been spelled out in detail by the chair, as well as his commitment to the fundamental principles that guide the organization. He has had a career that was focused on respect for human dignity, strengthening of democracy, and multilateral cooperation. Over the course of his career, he has held very important positions, which have already been mentioned. Some were by popular vote, some appointments to different organs in the inter-American system, where he demonstrated his knowledge, has made contributions, and always emphasizing solidarity and cooperation, seeking consensus on a number of different matters. We are sure that the presence of Ambassador Encinas in this organization will be a valuable step forward as we try to grapple with the challenges in the hemisphere, as you yourself stated just a few moments ago. And this is the statement of the Group of 10. But personally, I wanted to state that I know Ambassador Encinas on a personal level and have for many years. In my time as commissioner on the IACHR, he was the Assistant Secretary of Human Rights for migration, and was one of those involved in the Commission on Truth, and one of the most painful periods for Mexico, the Ayotzinapa case, where 43 teaching students disappeared. In Mexico, we saw a great deal of resilience and pain because of this violation of human rights. In Colombia, there was also a massacre of 43 individuals. So you can see the magnitude of internal conflicts. And we see this within our countries. In one municipality in Colombia, Segovia, 43 peasants were murdered, one for each head of cattle that disappeared. They were ordered dead. That is the level to which we have seen devolve the internal conflicts. The Ayotzinapa case was very painful for Mexico, for human rights, and for the entire world. Alejandro Encinas, as part of the follow-up mechanism, MESA, we were able to see firsthand his commitment to truth and access to justice and the importance of guaranteeing human rights to all individuals. And for that reason, because of the work that we did together with Alejandro, I am certain that his technical skills and his tireless work in defending the principles of the Inter-American system, the OAS and its deliberations will be strengthened. Alejandro, I wish you the greatest success in your time here. Please rest assured that you will have our support as we work for the well-being of our peoples, the defense of human rights, and the development of the Americas. The lessons that we have learned in Mexico, Brazil, and Colombia, hopefully someday we will be able to surmount poverty and we will be able to continue forward with our work. Thank you very much and welcome to you, Alejandro. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you, Ambassador, for those words. The United States has the floor.
Mr. Chair, the United States extends its sincere welcome and best wishes to Ambassador Alejandro Encinas as he begins his service as permanent representative of Mexico to the Organization of American States. We share a nearly 2,000-mile border with Mexico. Mexico is one of the United States' most strategic, complex, and consequential relationships, given its day-to-day impact on the lives, security, and economic prosperity of the people of the Americas. We hope to replicate this close and mutually beneficial cooperation in the OAS and look forward to working closely with the Ambassador Encinas on matters that affect the security and economic prosperity of the whole region. I am personally very impressed with your incredible resume and dedication to service. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Panama has the floor. Thank you very much, Chair. I have the honor of taking the floor on behalf of the delegations of Belize, Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Panama, and the Dominican Republic. We would like to extend a cordial welcome to this home of the Americas to His Excellency Alejandro Encinas Rodriguez, permanent representative of Mexico before the OAS. His a recognized career in fighting for human rights and social justice is a guarantee that our shared agenda will move forward. We hope to strengthen the ties of cooperation to grapple with the challenges of sustainable development and security in our region. On behalf of our regional group, I would like to express our proactive will to continue to work in solidarity and cooperation amongst our delegations to consolidate effective multilateralism. The group of Central America and the Dominican Republic celebrates your arrival, Mr. Ambassador, and we promise to work jointly with the delegation of Mexico to promote democracy, human rights, security, and development as pillars of the Inter-American system. In this regard, we are pleased to have seen your prior work in human rights as well in the fight against organized crime and climate action, which are very critical issues for the Panamanian Isthmus and Central America. His professional experience is one that has been multidimensional, interdisciplinary in the areas of economics, planning. He has taught. He's worked in politics, legislatures, and different levels of government. He has also been a speaker, among many other roles he's played. We're assured that with his professional and personal characteristics, he will continue to strengthen the excellent work that we have seen amongst the member states of this organization. We fully share your words, Mr. Chairman, and the words of the ambassador. In times of crisis, multilateralism is not just necessary, it is essential. We must do this to work for a future with social justice for the peoples of the Americas. Welcome to you, Ambassador. Thank you very much, Madam Ambassador. Canada now has the floor.
Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. Chairman, on behalf of the delegation of Canada, I'm delighted to welcome Ambassador Encinas to this group, which will allow us, as we have been doing, to continue navigating sometimes very choppy waters in hopes that we can better work for defense of human rights and individual rights.
Deep partnership, bilaterally and at the OAS, grounded in respect, solidarity, and a shared vision for a peaceful and prosperous hemisphere. We look forward to working closely with you, Ambassador, on priorities that unite us, including strengthening democratic governance and the rule of law and human rights, fostering inclusive and sustainable economic growth and gender equality, enhancing security through cooperation, and advancing climate resilience. Ambassador Encinas, we are confident that your expertise and dedication will enrich our deliberations and strengthen the multilateral system we all serve. Thank you, sir, and bienvenido.
Muchas gracias, la delegación.
Thank you very much, Canada. The delegation of Belize is recognized.
Mr. Chairman, the distinguished ambassador of Panama already spoke on behalf of Belize as part of the SICA group, and Belize fully endorses and associates itself with what was articulated by the ambassador. However, we could not pass up the opportunity to extend a very warm welcome to the Ambassador Alejandro Encinas of Mexico, dear friend and colleague and a neighbor. Belize and Mexico are bound more than by geographic proximity. We are bound by history as part of the Maya world which we share. We're bound by culture, we're bound by family ties across the border, by trade, and a lot of other things that we hold in common. We look forward to working with the ambassador, and we trust that his tremendous experience in very senior roles in administration will be a deliberate asset for this council as we deal with the big issues of our time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Muchas gracias, embajador.
Thank you very much indeed, Ambassador. Uruguay is recognized. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, Uruguay wishes to echo the words of welcome of our coordinator for the Group of 10, Colombia in this case, but we want also individually to welcome Ambassador Alejandro Encinas. Needless to say, we have a very close relationship based on a very great number of ties that bind us, social, commercial, trade, historic, and others. Ambassador Encinas, when he was the representative for the human rights defense in the central government of Mexico, is someone I came to know. And together we worked to uphold the defense of journalists in regards to their own human rights as they sought to defend the human rights of others. So that certainly is at the heart of our mutual concerns, and certainly that of the populations we represent here. Mexico has always stood for multilateralism, democracy, human rights, and so many other key principles. And so, Ambassador, please know that above and beyond the traditional words of welcome, you are truly, truly very welcome among us. Thank you, Chile. Chile is also a member of the Group of 10, and we also echo the words of the permanent representative for Colombia, and take the opportunity to greet each of you here today, most especially to Alejandro Sina Rodriguez, the newly arrived representative of the Mexican states. Chile has a deep and a fraternal tie that links us to Mexico. We have stood together for democracy, human rights, development, and general development writ large. And we're very certain that that is not going simply to be part of our historic roots, but very much will guide our path in the future. You are most welcome, Ambassador Encina Rodriguez. Your knowledge of these issues in your own country is well known, and we know how deeply committed you have been to the principles that are dear to us here. You may be certain, and not surprised, that that knowledge will certainly serve you well and serve us well as you join us here in strengthening the work of the OAS and the challenge that we continue to fight for sustainable development, democracy, human rights throughout the hemisphere. Chile, you may be sure, is committed to continuing to strengthen the ties between your country and mine. A very warm welcome to you, sir. Thank you. Thank you, Chile. Argentina is recognized. Chair, thank you. I can only echo the words of the distinguished representative of the ambassador of Colombia, representing the Group of 10. But as I already said to Ambassador Encinas himself, I wished also to express my own joy in having somebody of the stature of Ambassador Encinas join us. I said to him that our governments do, that regard notwithstanding, different points of view in some instances on this matter or another. However, the very deep ties that bind us and that aren't recent but very long-standing will certainly stand us in good stead here. We can talk about trade, democracy, multilateralism, asylum, so many, many things, so many important issues are issues that we have championed. We will listen to each other carefully, we will certainly listen to you, and we will find a way to move forward with success. And we are delighted that you can join us in ours. Thank you. Thank you. The delegation of Jamaica is recognized.
Chair, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I just want to take the opportunity on behalf of Jamaica and also a number of our CARICOM colleagues to welcome you here to the Permanent Council. It's indeed an honor to extend this welcome to you. And your being here demonstrates the continued commitment of Mexico to this body and the furtherance of the principles of the inter-American system and of the OAS. We look forward to working closely with you, Ambassador Encinas, on many of the issues that confront us at this time. And there are many thorny issues, but I believe that together we'll be able to resolve them to the betterment of everyone involved. So we wish you all the very best in your tenure here at the OAS. Thank you.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you, sir, for that statement. We certainly, all of us, wish Ambassador Encinas every success in his position as ambassador for Mexico amongst us. A very warm welcome, sir. With this, let us move to the next item on the agenda. which leads us to the 39th report on the peace process that the OAS is carrying out in Colombia. You have the document before you. And we are going to give the floor to Mr. Menendez, who will speak to us of the peace process in Colombia. You will be joining us, sir, virtually.
Tiene que hacer una solicitud de pedir la palabra. Ahí está, señor Menéndez.
Oh, good. We see you, sir. Go right ahead. Thank you, Chair. I want to greet you as chairman and greet the Secretary General and Assistant Secretary General, members and assistant members, the members of MAP, CT Res 859, gives us an opportunity to present the results on MAP OAS. This is the first quarterly report that we bring to you, which in fact tallies with the final stage of one period of our activity and the launching of the next. And the hope, certainly, the ongoing hope, that our work for peace can lead to concrete steps and lasting improvements. Between January and June of 2025, which is covered in the report I'm giving you, there were more than 27 visits. 259 rural communities were visited in over 100 townships. The OAS, through MAP, worked with the Colombian government to strengthen the initiatives for peace that are ongoing, including the roundtables for dialogue and ongoing work to improve socio and political links that need to be constantly upheld and improved to keep peace in Colombia. We have set up zones for temporary activities to help people who are leaving armed conflict, putting down their arms, adapt to civil society and to civil life, to repair the damage to victims and to uphold the human rights in general. We have also dealt with more than 20 tons of warfaring material that these groups have had and are working very hard to take more than 3,000 hectares and transform them from what they have been back to the rural activities that they have served so long. And so economic and social commitments are being taken also to work against the ongoing violence against women. Communities, and even despite these salient measures to uphold peace, continue to be a challenge. Armed gangs, forced displacement, violence, sexual violence of different types, rape and others, to under 18-year-old, including little boys, little girls, adolescents, rural communities. A great number of groups, individuals and collective, continue to be at risk. And the armed violence in the country, particularly in the Amazon regions and the lower Catatumbo, Chocobio in the north, and the Araucan Pacific coast, are hot areas as well. Very challenging indeed. In those regions, the armed groups inevitably turn around who gets to keep the land and who can turf out those who are there. And through drones, through explosive material, and any other a series of challenges and attacks against the communities all spell tremendous challenge for MAP OAS. The MAP OAS continues nonetheless to remain focused on better articulating the regional and national governments and to uphold peace initiatives. We would here uphold that a protection of civil society is not something that has to be looked at as convenient. It is, on the contrary, something that is essential to democracy throughout the hemisphere, we don't hesitate to add. Poverty and exclusion is not the way forward. And the persistence of the armed conflict in Colombia has only continued to polarize our society. It has weakened our institutions, including our democracy. And it is therefore an ongoing challenge to peace and stability. Therefore, over the time that we were carrying out this review, Miguel Uribe Turbay was assassinated. The Secretary General and this entire organization, of course, rose up against that very clearly and cogently. And we call on every one of you here to do what you can from your own positions to assure the fact that certainly elections free from violence are a very important reflection of democracy. Certainly that is so in Colombia, and when that is not upheld, violence is the winner, precisely what we do not want. That is why MAP OAS has worked unstintingly for peace, focusing on very concrete steps. This is not just a broad brush. We want to be sure that what we're doing will, little by little, constitute a lasting change. But all of this will hinge on how and to what extent the agreements that have been struck are in fact implemented, and how much society will take them in and uphold them. MAP OAS upholds that what we are doing in Colombia is certainly of hemispheric importance, and that is why Germany, Argentina, Canada, Chile, Ireland, Italy, Norway, Netherlands, Switzerland, and Sweden, as well as Turkey, are all to be thanked. All those who are allies of peace in Colombia are called upon to stay with us and to continue working. It is absolutely essential that MAP remain strong, remain vibrant, and remain operational. This is what we will need in order to face up to the tremendous challenges ahead. Let me mention in passing the mechanism whereby states put the service of professionals and those who are working to be professionals in these activities. And this sort of activity is something that every one of us can contribute. So in this year that is key for Colombia, the Secretary General and the offices here are committed. The interpreter regrets we've lost the audio at the very end, or simply is it that the time is up? But could we please offer some more time to Mr. Menendez so he can wrap up? Indeed, sir. Indeed. Thank you very much indeed. I was just saying that this year is key for Colombia, and the Secretariat here for the Secretary General is committed to maintaining our support and to renewing our collective efforts so that all of these important principles can be translated into lasting peace, not those for only alive today, but those who are coming. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Thank you, sir, says the chair. This is the report, then, ladies and gentlemen, that we wished to hear. And let me then now offer the floor, ladies and gentlemen, should any of you wish to take the floor and make some comments. Colombia, you are recognized. Thank you. I want to begin by thanking the General Secretariat for the support that has been offered, and the head of the mission, Roberto Menendez, for the 39th report that has just been presented here to the Permanent Council that we believe gives a very clear overall look at what has been happening between the 30th or the 1st of January, I should say, to the 30th of June. That is the first 6 months of this year. The commitment of Colombia to peace is well known, and we can only hope that MAP OAS continues to offer the important and very valuable support, as do Colombia, or I should say Italy, the Netherlands, Holland, Spain, Sweden, Turkey, among others, Argentina, Switzerland, and Norway as well. Some offer policy support, others technical support, others financial support, but you may be sure that all of these delegations and those that I did not mention are key to the work that the Colombian government continues to carry out and is committed to for peace. But international support is absolutely essential to what we can do to try truly to transform the lives of the people most deeply affected by this ongoing conflict. Colombia has certainly faced challenging and extremely painful crises. The crisis in the region of Catatumbo, which this report sets forth, is but one example of the challenges to our democracy. But we are committed, as ever before, to democracy, to life, to human rights, and to dialogue as the pillars for what might be lasting peace. We can only hope. So I take this opportunity to state that the challenges that are still before us, as well as the great progress we have already achieved, are both issues that we hail. We've worked hard on doing better in distributing the land. Hundreds of thousands of hectares have in fact been handed over to people of the countryside, very marginalized people, peasants everywhere. And the building of highways is also essential, as is the strengthening of a security system within which people can be safe in speaking up and speaking out for peace. Number of concrete actions have been taken also to help women, ethnic groups, boys and girls of various ages, children and adolescents. And what MAP OAS has done over 2025 really warrants attention. The peaceful exercise of democracy has been one that everyone has embraced. The media, institutional actors have all worked to make sure that elections can be held free from violence, and with a particular emphasis on the groups that have, up to now, historically been marginalized. We believe in transitional justice. The GEP, that is the acronym for Action for Peace, speaks for democracy and the principle of non-repetition, inter alia. We also uphold the value of MAP OAS, which is recognized internationally under the ISO standards, and its commitment to peace, the demobilization of armed actors, including the definition of areas that can be used for temporary assistance to those. In the 2016 peace accords, we already reiterated the importance of working towards ongoing not only national support, but international support. So we call on you, ladies and gentlemen, to please continue your support to MAP OAS, because it is absolutely invaluable, not only to Colombia, to the region, but indeed, dare I say, to the world at large. Thank you. Thank you, sir, for that very detailed report. We appreciate it. The delegation of Chile is recognized. Thank you. We're very pleased for this 19th General Report on the mission to support peace in Colombia. Roberto Menendez, the Chief of Mission, has explained how much has been done, and we in Chile continue to lend our unstinting support to MAP OAS because we feel that what it is doing is essential. And certainly the institutional support that we can continue to lend and must continue to lend will go a long way to continue, certainly, with the respect for human rights and to improving it indeed. Chile, albeit modestly perhaps, is doing what it can to make a difference. We put our support into the basket fund that makes a difference in the end. Chile is a warrantor country between Colombia and the peace processes, and we are committed to peace, to truth, and to reconciliation. Peace in Colombia, after all, is peace in this entire hemisphere, and dare I say in the region at large. We've said this many times, but for Chile, solidarity vis-à-vis MAP OAS is an ongoing commitment. It is not here today, gone tomorrow. This is an unwavering commitment that we continue to uphold and can only hope that you all will feel the same way and offer your support as best you can. Thank you. Thank you very much. Brazil is recognized. Thank you, sir. I, too, would like to thank Roberto Menendez for the ongoing periodic report on the mission of peace in Colombia. We continue to reiterate our support there, too, and to the efforts that have been undertaken and continue to be unfolded as we are hearing. A complex issue, certainly. Illegal armed groups, ever a problem, and especially in the Catatumbo, not least various violations of the rights of the civil population there. Drones, artifacts that have been put together, but that are of very damaging effect on the populations, are all sources of concern. So too the kidnappings and the offer of work where work does not exist, but as a lure to bring people into the power of others. Brazil shares the concerns that we have heard about and certainly underscores, as others have done, the need for us to continue working collectively to ensure that humanitarian assistance and safety, particularly in the rural areas, must be upheld by the government within the framework of ongoing and full peace, full and comprehensive peace. We would hope to see more round tables to discuss amongst those in the various different groups, including the Bolivarian armies, understanding that, as in Buenaventura and elsewhere, so that everyone has a chance to listen and so that war-grade material can be brought together and destroyed. Here there is a fundamental role that is being played by MAP OAS, and the calling for ceasefires and ongoing work with the populations must continue. It's a matter of building trust among the communities, of ensuring people that they can speak up and build a dialogue. Women, Peace and Security is a group, including the approval of a law in 2025, just recently, focusing on women is something we also applaud. This has to be a main building block on which peace can be built. We have been following this for decades, and we will continue to do so, particularly as regards demining There are Brazilian experts that have been participating with the Inter-American experts themselves. We are a guarantor also of the negotiations and will continue to offer every constructive support we can to ensure this dialogue is ongoing. Peace is within reach in Colombia. It won't fall from the skies. We're going to have to keep working very hard here at the OAS, particularly as the 2026 elections are on the horizon. Thank you very much, Ambassador. Canada is recognized. Chair, we wish to take this opportunity to thank Mr. Menendez for this update on what is happening. We continue, as of 2004, to be very much involved in this process. We believe in free and peaceful elections and hope they can be held, particularly in the regions that continue to be riddled by violence. And we are also very grateful for the OAS support.
Facing Colombia, including the achievement of gender equality. This continues to be an integral part of the human rights work undertaken by the Embassy of Canada in Colombia. We urge the Colombian government, respectfully, to prioritize the protection of human rights defenders and social leaders through concrete actions and to continue its efforts to address the root causes of violence and insecurity in the country. Canada fully supports the peace efforts of the Colombian government and wishes to once again highlight the importance of the full implementation of the 2016 peace agreement, including the chapter of ethnic issues and the provisions related to gender equality, as a foundation for future peace efforts. Canada looks forward to continuing to work closely with the OAS and other international partners towards lasting peace and stability in the region. We will continue to support the detailed recommendations presented in the MAP report and their ongoing work. Thank you.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Canada. Uruguay, you have the floor. Thank you, Chair. Uruguay wishes to reiterate its firm commitment to peace, dialogue, and the peaceful resolution of disputes, part of the Inter-American system and according to the Inter-American Charter. We respect the dignity of all persons. This is a shared responsibility of the states of the region. We take note of the progress reported by the gentleman in charge of MAP in Colombia, as well as the challenges to full implementation of the peace accords. Our country has taken an active role as part of the UN in the 2026-2027 period. Our country fully supported the implementation of the peace accords in Colombia, backing the mission for verification sent by the UN. In this context, Uruguay underscored in the rights of the victims, the need for international humanitarian law for sustained peace. This was supported by the Colombian state. The former president of Uruguay, President Mujica, was part of the efforts toward peace. And it stated that Colombia should consider peace. In 2025, Uruguay became a guarantor country in the working group for peace between Colombia and the Bolivariano University. We expressed our solidarity and support to facilitate dialogue, to contribute to agreements and progress toward peace. We have participated in the Doha Forum in Qatar with other countries with experience in mediation to strengthen ties and share best practices on peace. Uruguay believes it's important to build capacity so that states and the parties in all conflicts, we offer our participation in any path toward peaceful resolution of conflict. We believe that this is a regional public good to strengthen democracy and to peaceful coexistence. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ambassador. The United States has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The United States takes the Secretary General and OAS mission to support the peace process in Colombia for presenting the 39th report covering January through June 2025. This report is sobering. MAP OAS conducted 977 field missions and documents a deteriorating security environment marked by humanitarian abuses against civilians perpetrated by illegal armed groups, including forced displacement, confinement, sexual violence, and the continued recruitment and use of children. The United States supports real peace and justice in Colombia, and our relationships with the Colombian people and their institutions are strong and enduring. We must be candid. President Petro's security and counter-narcotics policies need to be enhanced to produce meaningful results. The Colombian government's total peace approach needs to produce tangible security results. We urge Colombia to prioritize stopping the campaigns of violence and terror conducted by these groups and guaranteeing security and justice for their victims. We condemn those who undermine peace through narco-trafficking and terrorist activity. Yesterday, we designated one of these groups, Clan de Golfo, a foreign terrorist organization, cutting their access to funding and resources. There must be no impunity for acts of terror or violence by illegal armed groups. We further underscore that escalating violence is particularly alarming as Colombia approaches the 2026 electoral cycle, and political violence has no place in a democratic society. The heinous murder of Colombian president candidate Miguel Urb cannot be in vain. Mr. Chair, MAP OAS plays an important role by providing objective, field-based monitoring and reporting that helps our hemisphere understand these risks in real time. We welcome continued support for this monitoring and early warning function, as we also call on Colombia to prioritize measurable and verifiable security outcomes, protection of civilians, and accountability as essential foundations for lasting peace. Thank you.
Muchas gracias por su
Thank you very much for your remarks. Guatemala has the floor. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Guatemala would like to express our thanks for the presentation of the 39th report presented by the Chief of Mission, Roberto Menzen. 9 years after the signing of the peace agreements and the continued internal conflict, this shows the relevance and the complexities of a process that has become a benchmark in the region and internationally for resolving long-standing conflicts. In the facts in the report in terms of truth, justice, and the participation of victims and the multiple spaces for dialogue in rural areas. These reflect the commitment of the Colombian government to the respect for rights and institutional strengthening, as well as effective state presence in those areas affected. Nevertheless, the report identifies significant challenges, among them the intensifying actions of armed groups in the degrading of a humanitarian crisis that is impacting thousands of families, the grave violations in rural areas, the particular situation of women, children, and adolescents, as well as the use of new types of violence that undermine community safety and require action. Guatemala energetically condemns all forms of violence that undermines democratic coexistence. Mr. Chairman and distinguished representatives, Guatemala commends the government of Colombia and the OAS for their efforts toward peace. And this mission is a key actor on the ground. It works towards dialogue and follow-up, which has been key for strengthening trust and contributing to the consolidation of peace in Colombia. This is an example of the value added of the OAS in processes for transformation in the Americas. We underscore the certification in knowledge management and that positions this as a benchmark for other peace missions. In this context, we reiterate our thanks to Roberto Mendez and his team and restate our support for Colombia as it seeks enduring peace. Thank you very much. Argentina now has the floor. Mr. Chairman, I will be very brief. I would like to recognize the work spearheaded by Mr. Menendez in the framework of MAP OAS. I think MAP OAS is probably one of the clearest examples that the OAS can and must be a relevant actor in matters having to do with peace, human rights, and democracy. Argentina has always been fully committed to this process. Full peace in Colombia is essential for our Colombian brothers and sisters, but it would be a great asset and great example for the rest of the region. It must be so, and the OAS cannot fail to continue to support Colombia in this. Thank you, Ambassador. Spain now has the floor. Thank you very much, Chair. We would like to thank the presentation by Roberto Menendez and Ambassador Vargas, and we welcome those. We are in decisive times for building broad and enduring peace in Colombia. This is both in the implementation of the 2016 and peace accords with the FARC and EP, as well as dialogue processes for total peace. The support of the international community is essential for consolidating the progress made, and we must work hand in hand with the Colombian government. In terms of work on the ground, the MAP is key for contributing to peace in the country. This was the first international verification mission, and this is a technical mission, was established at the specific request of the government of Colombia. The main objective was to support peace efforts by the state and the Colombian people directly in those areas most impacted by the armed conflict, criminality, and inequality. Its work is more relevant than ever now. Spain has been a part of this endeavor and has provided decisive support. Both politically, Spain agreed to be part of the dialogue working group between the FARC and the ELN and the government in 2016. We have provided funding as well. Since 2016, we have contributed to the MAP through contributions to the OAS fund through the Spanish Cooperation Agency. From 2016 to 2024, we have contributed more than 11 million euros. In 2024, the plan of action was adopted in June of 2025. We provided 700,000 euros to the MAP basket. There are another 600,000 that will be channeled to the MAP, and the work of the MAP and all international forums, and particularly in the inter-American space. Our country is also committed to the Total Peace Project, whose aim is to build broad and enduring peace in Colombia in pursuant to the principles that have underpinned it since it was created. As we commemorate the 25th anniversary of the Resolution 1325 of the UN on Women, Peace and Security, we wanted to underscore the essential role of women in the achievement of peace in Colombia. I will wrap up by saying that the work of the General Secretariat, the Secretariat for Strengthening Democracy, and the MAP, and as well as the efforts of the Colombian government. Colombia will continue to have Spain's support as a trusted partner. Thank you very much. The observer mission from Italy now has the floor. Thank you very much, Chair and Mr. Secretary General, colleagues. We would like to thank you for the presentation of the periodic report, which was done by the head of the MAP. This is one of the most significant hemispheric efforts of the OAS in Latin America. The organization has provided support since 2004, the efforts of 4 different Colombian presidents. And each has had different vision for peace in the country and how to achieve that peace. And these efforts toward peace have been supported by the OAS member states as well as many observer states like Italy. We have been involved in some working dialogue groups with the government. We have many contacts on the ground and in contexts where there is very difficult access to areas. These are some of the challenges. And as Ambassador Menendez said, this is important to preserve our heritage and is a valuable tool for the Colombian authorities. We join in the call made by Ambassador Menendez to significantly reduce violence against civil society. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Italy, for those remarks. I would like to thank Mr. Menendez for the report. If there are no further requests for the floor, and I wanted to thank you for your efforts. We commend the members of the MAP mission as well as the staff of the Secretariat for Strengthening of Democracy for the progress they have made in this process. Having said this, the Chair suggests that the Permanent Council take note of the presentation of the 39th report of the mission, the OAS mission to support the peace process in Colombia, document CP/doc 6164/25, as well as the interventions made by the different delegations. If there are no objections, we therefore decide this. Before moving on to the next item, I would like to suggest and put to the group a change in the order of business. This was something requested by the delegation of Guyana and about the candidate to replace Dr. Arif Volcan on the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights. We will move that to item 7. So after item 4 on the electoral calendar, we will then proceed to the election, and thereafter we will continue with our order of business in the same order. So then it would be the presentation of Resolution 224 of the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights. This request was made after we had put together the order of business, and so the chair was not able to do this, but it's because of the needs of the 2 delegations and the presence of the candidate. So the chair has decided it would be prudent to put this request to move that item up on the order of business to the delegations. If there is no opposition, so I didn't want to surprise anyone, and we also didn't want to postpone the discussion of the electoral calendar, and so it is so agreed. I would like to thank you all for your flexibility and your understanding regarding the need to make that change. So we will now move out to item 4. So this is the 2026 electoral calendar. And following the request of the Secretary General, I'm pleased to welcome and give the floor to Gerardo de Casa, who is the director of the Electoral Observation Section of the Department for Electoral Cooperation and Observation of the Secretariat for Strengthening Democracy, will present the electoral calendar for 2026 in the region. Welcome to you. You now have the floor. And thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and to the Permanent Representative of Chile, to the OAS, Tomas Pacuelrique, Chair of the Permanent Council. I would also like to congratulate Chile for its exemplary elections this past weekend. I was there for the first round, and we have an excellent relationship with the election officials there. Mr. Secretary General Albert Ramdin, Assistant Secretary General Laura Gil, distinguished members of the Permanent Council and authorities, I would also like to extend my welcome to Ambassador Encinas, who is someone I have seen along the way in my own professional life. I'm honored to share with this honorable Permanent Council the electoral calendar for 2026. We have shared that with you. We are now providing physical copies to each of you. And the year that is soon coming to an end has been one of intense electoral activity. We had 12 missions. That's about one per month. We have also circulated some proposals for the upcoming electoral observation missions. Costa Rica, Peru, and others have extended invitations, and we have a pre-electoral mission set up for Haiti. I wanted to thank the support that we've received from Secretary General Ramdin, but also from member states and observers that in different ways have supported our work over the course of the year. I would like to also thank the excellent team from DECO, who work many weekends to support the hemisphere. They are always very proud to wear the organization's vest. In DECO, we are always seeking to innovate, and our presentation today is a demonstration of that commitment. We have incorporated AI tools in order to better communicate the work we're doing. We also will be presenting DECO News. It's a segment devoted to developments in the department. It was put together by our own team using AI, but the presentation will be in English, but we have provided a translation in Spanish. If you'll please play the video.
Hello and welcome. This is DECO TV News. This is the presentation of the OAS Department for Electoral Cooperation and Observation's 2026 electoral calendar on elections in the Americas. 2025 was an intense year. We deployed 12 electoral observation missions in 9 countries across the continent. In all, 579 experts and observers participated, 302 women and 277 men. The missions issued over 400 recommendations in different thematic areas, but the calendar never ends. Here is the schedule of elections for the Americas for 2026. Elections are expected in 9 countries, and we have already received invitations to deploy electoral observation missions from Costa Rica, Colombia, and Peru. 6 of the 9 countries will elect their head of government. Over 400 million citizens are eligible to vote in the region.
The electoral year begins in Costa Rica with elections on February 1st to elect the president, vice presidents, and members of the Legislative Assembly. The voter registry has more than 3.7 million voters. The electoral system includes the possibility of a second-round presidential election, which is scheduled for April 5th. The next election will be in Colombia, where new members of Congress will be elected in March, and the President and Vice President will be elected in May. Over 41 million people will be able to vote. The system includes a second-round presidential election, which, if necessary, will take place on June 21st. In Peru, citizens will vote for a new president, vice presidents, Senate, Congress, and members of the Andean Parliament on April 12th. More than 27 million people are eligible to vote. The system includes a second-round presidential election, which will be held on June 7th if needed. Bolivia will vote to elect subnational authorities on March 22nd in 9 departments, with over 8 million voters. The system includes the possibility of a second round at the departmental level, scheduled for April 19th. The Provisional Electoral Council of Haiti has announced August 30th as a tentative date for the general elections, with the possibility of a second round on December 6th. In this election, more than 6.3 million voters will be able to elect presidential, legislative, municipal, and local authorities. In Brazil, voters will elect representatives for the executive and legislative powers, as well as state and federal authorities through electronic voting. The country has over 158 million voters. If necessary, a second-round presidential and gubernatorial election will be held on October 25th. Paraguay will hold municipal elections with electronic voting. More than 4.8 million people will be eligible to vote. The United States will have legislative, state, and local elections in November, with over 173 million voters eligible to cast a ballot. Finally, the Bahamas will hold elections for the 39 seats of its House of Assembly, thereby determining the new Prime Minister. Over 194,000 persons are eligible to vote. Since it is a parliamentary system, the date is not predetermined.
The work of the OAS electoral observation missions in 2025 has been made possible thanks to the valuable contributions of Brazil, Canada, Chile, Colombia, the Dominican Republic, France, Honduras, Italy, Morocco, Panama, Peru, the Netherlands, Korea, Spain, Switzerland, and the United States. The OAS's commitment to electoral observation and the defense of democracy remains firm. Thank you for accompanying and supporting the OAS's work to strengthen democracy in the Americas.
Estamos listos con...
Well, congratulations on that excellent video, which does a very good job at communicating, conveying what the department does. I think it's an excellent initiative in supplementing Director Icasa's presentation. I will first give the floor to the Secretary General and then to the member states.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to say a few words following the presentation by the Secretariat and especially DECO. It was presented a couple of weeks ago to us as a advanced documentary. I wanted to add these points. One is, as we had promised, we would seek to showcase much more what the OAS is doing to member states, to interested domestic institutions, but also the population at large. This is one example. This part of our media strategy, which will now, from now on, produce these activities much more, these documentaries much more on a regular basis. This is done by DECO. I must compliment them very much for an in-house job using new technology, including AI. So it is really a very effective tool to showcase in 3 minutes what we do in terms of election observation in support of member states. So this is selling, if you want to say that, marketing the organization to the people of the Americas, to the governments, to the members of parliament. and so on. So feel free if you wish. I don't think there are copyrights, but in any case, feel free to share this domestically so that the message can continue. I would ask you to do that with your headquarters, also with your media units back home. There are two more things which we learn from this. One is we promise to become more transparent. This is one way of doing that as well. Many more initiatives in the area of finance will be presented in the first quarter in terms of transparency, and we'll inform you in due course on that, and in terms of human resource management. But also, I want to say, because this has been done in-house, we do more with less. It doesn't mean that we don't money, okay? I want to be clear. But we are using our capacity at the highest levels. So I wanted to share that with you. I hope that these kind of presentations will facilitate further discussions so that it doesn't stay just with information, but that you can also show your interest in some instances and also support this process. So really thank you to DECO for doing this, very innovative, and it provides in one shot, in fact, what is happening in the electoral field in the Americas. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, Secretario General.
Thank you very much, Secretary General. You have the floor, ladies and gentlemen. Should you have any comments or desire to take it? Chile is recognized. Thank you, Chair. Our country is very grateful for the statement that we have heard on behalf of Gerardo Icaza and the Department of Electoral Cooperation and Observation in strengthening democracy. That is something that we all hold dear and are very interested in. We know that the electoral observation missions of the OAS are well known and greatly respected in the region, and we can all contribute one way or another to the effort. And what we have done this year is to try to offer some support in terms of finance for each mission. However, in order to strengthen the electoral observation missions, there may be support that is not monetary. What about best practices? What works and what doesn't? This is something that in 2025 we know something about. We have gathered the 18th meeting of electoral observation committees in Chile to speak of the integrity of the polls with regard to the new technologies and the impact they have on the democracies, and how and what we must do to make sure that the elections remain transparent and effective. We would be very happy to share more information on what works and what doesn't in our estimation. And to wrap up, sir, we can only say how much we have appreciated the DECO News and the use of artificial intelligence. Bravo to the DECO team for the technological advances. However, it's important also to look at the way in which human beings are represented in this. This is new and to be continued. The Dominican Republic is recognized. Mr. Chairman, we too wish to welcome Ambassador Encinas of Mexico. Welcome, sir, to this, your home, our organization, and yours. You may count on the Dominican Republic for anything you need, and certainly our support. Welcome again, Ambassador. We wish also to express our thanks to the Department for Strengthening of Democracy within the Secretariat. We know that the work that this group has deployed is unstinting and ongoing. The 2026 electoral program that will fall under the aegis of Eduardo Icaza, and we thank him in advance for his fault, is going to be something that will keep us on our toes. We very much count on that support to make sure that the electoral processes in each of our countries are as smooth as possible. We in the Dominican Republic know something about this. Our own electoral institutions have greatly benefited from the support of the OAS and has assisted us certainly in upholding the highest democratic standards. We stand for opportunity, impartiality, and the respect for the sovereignty of each one of our states, certainly. And we are therefore very grateful for the support, always respectful, always helpful that this department renders to each of us, not least in a time in which I think I'm able to say that many of us feel our own electoral processes are challenged, to say the least. DECO is known for its professionalism, for its openness to dialogue and cooperation with national authorities, and indeed the delegations that are sitting around this table in person. All of this spells institutional strengthening, exchange of best practices, and frankly, increased trust by our publics in the democratic process. So thank you on behalf of the Dominican Republic for what we've heard today with regard to the ongoing commitment of DECO to democracy in the Americas. We too stand ready to keep contributing to the help of the Secretariat in helping us to uphold democracy, mutual respect, and the basic principles that are enshrined in the charter of this organization. Thank you. Thank you, Ambassador. The United States is recognized.
Mr. Chair, my delegation wishes to recognize the essential work of the OAS Department of Electoral Cooperation and Observation. Across the Americas, DECO has established itself as a cornerstone of democratic governance, providing impartial experts support to electoral processes and reinforcing the public's trust in the institutions that shape our societies. DECO's commitment to transparency, technical excellence, and respect for national sovereignty has made it a trusted partner for governments and citizens alike. Through its observation missions, technical assistance, and capacity-building initiatives, DECO has helped ensure that elections are conducted freely, fairly, and in accordance with international standards. Its work has been instrumental, demonstrating a proven record in promoting peaceful transition of power and strengthening the rule of law throughout our region. As we have just witnessed in the course of recent days, we have been reminded yet again of the enormous value and critical nature of this function, so vital to advancing the values this institution represents and ensuring that the will of our citizens prevails at the ballot box. And looking ahead, the importance of DECO's mission is only set to grow. In 2027, our hemisphere will witness a significant number of national and local elections, moments that will shape the future of our countries and the region as a whole. From presidential contests to legislative and municipal races, millions of citizens will exercise their democratic rights. Many of these elections will count on the support and expertise of the OAS, and specifically DECO, to help ensure the processes are transparent, inclusive, and credible. The challenges facing democracy are complex and evolve, and DECO's professionalism and dedication are vital in meeting these challenges. To meet the demands of all the coming years, it's imperative that DECO is equipped with the resources necessary to fulfill its mission. And it is incumbent upon all of us to do our part and carry our fair share of the burden. Adequate funding and support for its highly skilled staff are essential. By investing in DECO, we invest in the resilience and legitimacy of our democracies. Let us reaffirm our shared commitment to the principles of free and fair elections. Let us ensure that DECO has the tools and support it needs to continue its exemplary service. The strength and future of democracy in the Americas depend on our collective resolve. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Muchas gracias, embajador.
Thank you, Ambassador, for that statement. Colombia is recognized. Chair, thank you very much. We wish to begin by expressing our own thanks to Gerardo Icaza for his statement as head of the Electoral Observation Mission of the Secretariat, DECO, within this organization, and thanks also to the Secretary General, Mr. Ramdeen, for the invitation that has been extended to us for us to follow these issues, and we will be doing so. There is no question that the support of the OAS has been absolutely key in the consolidation of democracy in this region. That is our view. And why? Well, because the technical expertise that the OAS has also and ever granted has made a difference in ensuring that the normative frameworks for elections to take place and the building of institutional savvy in our countries has benefited from this. And as Gerardo already said, in our country, many of us, and my country is no exception, will enter into a new electoral process as of this year. We will start in March and other elections in May or June in case there's a second ballot. Back in 1994, the first electoral observation missions were launched from this place, and that is something we very much welcome because the support has always assisted us in building the technical and capacity of each of us to defend our sovereignties in the electoral context. Certainly invoking the right to non-repetition as a historic matter, to ensure that what happened in the Congress or legislative elections is something we need to be very mindful of and try to avoid in future. So let's remember that and act accordingly. The report says, and this in inverted commas, more than 17,000 votes were lost, and a number of ballots and different urns were finally later recovered as a result of numbers of witnesses that stepped forward to try to repair the situation as best as possible. So to each of you, to each of your countries, and that has made a difference to the ongoing political process in all of our countries, thank you. And I'm sure I speak for all of us when I say that this more broadly stands for democracy and hemispheric cooperation. We reiterate certainly the commitment of Colombia to transparency, integrity, comprehensiveness, and the respect for democracy with a capital D. And most certainly our thanks to the OAS and to the international community at large for the support that has unstintingly been offered us. And I can assure you that President Gustavo Petro feels as much. You may be certain that Colombia will stand with us all in buttressing institutional democracy in our country and throughout the hemisphere. Thank you very much. Thank you, says the chair. Costa Rica is recognized. Thank you. Costa Rica, for its part, wants to express thanks to the Secretary General for the assistance that has been granted, and to Gerardo Icaza for the particular support to us and the presentation of the 2026 electoral calendar. It's good to know what's ahead. This document, I believe, will prove quite useful to us as we plan what we can do and do better in the region. We're grateful for this opportunity to the yes to put our heads together and see how we in Costa Rica can also benefit from the OAS support. There's going to be an electoral observation mission, and we know that this is going to make a big difference to the confidence of our citizens in this electoral process. It also, I think, says a very great deal for the excellent ties that bind us, we in Costa Rica, to this organization. So we will hail our own institutional democracy and also our ties with the OAS and the Defense for Democracy writ large. Thanks also to particularly to the Department for Electoral Observation, also for democracy, and the bringing in of the citizens in the taking of decisions. voting, transparency, participation are all the sine qua non of participatory democracy and are certainly at the very core of the democratic charter that is the bedrock of this organization. All of this, launched by the OAS, begins also in terms these days of cybersecurity and assistance to women's participation. And this again speaks to our trust in the institutional processes in each of our member countries. All good. Thank you. Thank you, Ambassador. I recognize Canada.
Canada would be remiss not to take the floor to thank first the Secretariat for strengthening democracy and of course the Department for Electoral Observation Mission, in particular Mr. Ikasa, and also congratulate him for this marketing tool, as the Secretary General himself mentioned, is very crucial for the organization. And I dare to try to paraphrase something that a dear Secretary of the OAS always says, that we are Coca-Cola, but we have the marketing tools of Pepsi. So this is, I think, an incredible tool, and we will definitely share this with our government. Thank you, and again, Canada is extremely proud to support the work of DECO. Thank you.
Bueno, de no haber...
It appears that there is no further request for the floor, ladies and gentlemen, and so let me again thank Director Ikasa for the presentation we have heard and take the opportunity to wish the electoral observation missions that the OAS will launch every success. And it isn't just in the future, I should say this is an ongoing effort that will be taking place throughout the region. And this, we know, is a hemisphere and continents that vote. So all of this, ladies and gentlemen, of course, will be reflected in the minutes of this mission and of this meeting, I should say. If no one objects, it is so decided. I said earlier that we will tweak the agenda. Item 7 speaks to the election of a commissioner to replace the position of Dr. Arif Bulkan on the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights. And let me take the opportunity also to greet the Secretariat of the Commission that I see represented here. This item, ladies and gentlemen, speaks to, as I said, an election to a member of this Inter-American Human Rights Commission. And to that end, let me give the floor to the representative of Antigua and Barbuda, who will speak to us. Ambassador Sanders, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I take the floor with the distinct honor of representing not only Antigua and Barbuda on this matter, but also the delegation of Guyana with its permission. Mr. Chairman, my delegation requested the inclusion of this item to enable the Permanent Council to discharge a clear institutional responsibility arising from a vacancy on the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights. That vacancy arose following the resignation of Dr. Arif Bulkan, the elected commissioner from Guyana, upon his appointment to the Caribbean Court of Justice. This vacancy did not result from the normal expiration of a term. The applicable legal framework is clear. Article 38 of the American Convention on Human Rights provides, and I quote, "Vacancies occurring in the Commission other than those due to the normal expiration of the term shall be filled by the Permanent Council of the organization in accordance with the provisions of the Statute of the Commission," unquote. The relevant statutory provision is Article 11 of the Statute of the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights, adopted by the General Assembly, which states in relevant part, and I quote it, "When a vacancy occurs in the Commission, other than by the normal expiration of the term, the Secretary General shall notify the Member States and open a period of 30 days for the submission of candidacies. The Permanent Council shall elect the person to fill the vacancy from among the candidates presented. That procedure was fully observed. The Secretary General formally notified the member states and opened the prescribed 30-day period for the submission of candidates. All member states were advised that the deadline for nominations was Friday, 12th December 2025. By the close of that period, only one candidacy was submitted. The government of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana nominated Dr. Riyad Insanali, a former permanent representative of this organization, who has served this council in multiple capacities, including chairing this permanent council, and who is fully familiar with the mandate, procedures, and responsibilities of the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights. The Secretary General has formally advised the chair of the Permanent Council that this is the sole candidacy received, and has requested that the necessary arrangements be made to enable the Permanent Council to proceed to fill the vacancy in accordance with Article 11 of the statutes. Mr. Chair, the Council is therefore seized of a situation expressly contemplated by the Convention and the statutes, a vacancy arising other than by expiration of term, a nomination process duly completed, and a single eligible candidate for one seat. In these circumstances, and acting within the authority of Article 38 of the American Convention on Human Rights and Article 11 of the Statute of the Commission, my delegation proposes that Dr. Riyad Insanali be elected by acclamation to fill the vacancy on the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights, thereby ensuring institutional continuity and the proper discharge of this Council's responsibilities. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Muchas gracias, embajador, por su...
Thank you very much, Ambassador, for that statement. Brazil has the floor. Thank you very much, Chair. Brazil wants to second the motion that we have just heard on behalf of Antigua and Barbuda. We very much agree that Dr. Riyad Insanali should be appointed by acclamation.
Bueno.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, and I very much thank the ambassadors of Antigua and Barbuda and Brazil, respectively, for the comments that have been offered and a very good historic review of the antecedents to this matter. And indeed, bravo to Dr. Insanali for his election. And we are very sure that his tenure as a member of the Inter-American Commission of Human Rights will be a very successful one. Guyana is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, Guyana would like to thank Ambassador of Antigua and Barbuda for putting his vast experience in the service of Guyana. We'd like to thank the Ambassador of Brazil for seconding the motion, and we'd like to thank all of the member states here for proceeding to acclaim Ambassador Insanali as a replacement commissioner for Dr. Arif Bulkan. We are confident that Ambassador Insanali will bring to bear his experience, knowledge, and familiarity with the Inter-American system to his work on the Commission. It is our belief that these will stand him in good stead as the Commission continues its efforts to promote the observance and protection of human rights in the Americas. Accordingly, we join member states in congratulating him and wishing him the best as he undertakes critical and necessary work on behalf of the peoples of the Americas. I thank you, Chair.
Muchas gracias, embajador, por su
Thank you, Ambassador, for that statement. Please, you got it, thank you. Mexico is recognized. Thank you, Chair. Mexico wishes to congratulate Dr. Nsanali for the election in order to cover the rest of the time that Mr. Bulkan would have continued to represent on the Commission of Human Rights. We recognize the long and historic tenure of Dr. Nsanali. We wish him every success in this new position and are quite certain will make a big difference to the ongoing support for the values and principles that undergird the Inter-American human rights system. We in Mexico are absolutely disposed to help in any way possible constructively with all of the commissioners of the IACHR and the entire team of the Secretariat, the Executive Secretariat, I might add, so that the tremendous challenges that the present international context has confronted us with in terms of the dignity of the person in this hemisphere can be best dealt with. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you. The United States is recognized.
Mr. Chair, the United States congratulates Dr. Riyad Nsanali on his election to the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights and wishes him success as he assumes his responsibilities. We welcome Dr. Nsanali's service to the Commission and look forward to working with him, together with other commissioners, in support of a strong, credible, and effective inter-American human rights system. The Trump administration is proud to have our U.S. candidate, Rosa Maria Paya, begin in her term in January, where we will continue to promote meaningful reforms, strengthen democratic governance, and defend human rights. The United States values continue open and constructive dialogue with the Commission on shared priorities, including strengthening institutional effectiveness, improving transparency, addressing case backlogs, and ensuring clarity and consistency in the Commission's work. We reaffirm our commitment to working with the Commission to support reform efforts that enhance efficiency, accountability, and respect for the Commission's legal mandate, consistent with the OAS Charter and applicable instruments. We also underscore the importance of the Commission working together with OAS member states, including common law in Caribbean countries, and welcome opportunities to deepen cooperation and mutual understanding across various legal traditions. We look forward to a momentous year as we support the Commission in modernizing, prioritizing, and carrying out its mandate in service on human rights, democratic governance, and the rule of law throughout our hemisphere. I look forward to personally working with the entire Commission and on such reform and bringing new opportunities for the member states. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Estados Unidos. Argentina.
Thank you so much. U.S., Argentina is recognized. Mr. Chairman, along the same lines as we have been hearing by everyone around the table, I too would like to echo the view that the work of Commissioner Volkman is certainly worth applauding. And following it, we must and can only but ensure that when this kind of vacancy arises, the country from which the retiring individual came should have the ability and the permission to make a proposal. And this has been honored here, and our good friends from Guyana have certainly offered a tremendous candidate. And Argentina, for its part, is quite certain that Commissioner now, well, Ambassador and now Commissioner Riyad Nsanali will, in every respect, fulfill that role in an exemplary manner. And certainly with regards to the neutrality and the independency of the technical work, the transparency, certainly, of the technical work involved, without ever forgetting or dismissing the ability to maintain a political dialogue. Since I got here, I have maintained a very fine and open dialogue with the Commission itself, with the individual commissioners, certainly also with the Secretariat. And I'm very pleased to say that that is a virtuous dialogue. It doesn't mean we don't have differences. That's not what this is about. But it's what we do with those differences that makes the difference. Is that not the case? We need to be sure that the various members can speak up and can identify the various contexts in which the commissioners operate. So bravo in advance, and our very best wishes to Commissioner Ensenali, who, as we know, speaks perfect Spanish, because I just discovered that recently, and I think that's yet another great favor on his behalf. So thank you. Easier to speak in the same language. Thank you, Argentina, says the chair. And as Ambassador Sanders has rightly pointed out, and we have just heard by the different members, we are pleased to have this position followed or adopted by acclamation. So, Mr. Ensenali, the period that begins 17th December 2025 and that will end the 31st December of 2027 at the ISEHR, that was the original period for which Mr. Arif Bulkan had been chosen. The new person will take that position. So bravo to Dr. Ensenali for this election, for this appointment, and we hope that the Secretariat and the whole team will do what is necessary to make sure that the good doctor will be able to be up and running before we know it. So bravo, Dr. Ensenali, as the newest member of the ISEHR.
Retomamos el orden inicial.
So we are now going back to our initial order of business. So moving on to item 6, with the presentation of IACHR Resolution 224 on human mobility induced by climate change. And this item was requested by the delegations of Colombia and Chile. So now we will have the presentation of the resolution by the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights. And again, this was Resolution 24. I am pleased to offer the floor to Commissioner Andrea Pochak, Rapporteur on Human Mobility of the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights. And she is joining us virtually. Welcome, Commissioner Pochak. You have the floor. Thank you very much, and good morning. I wanted to begin. I wanted to begin by extending my greetings to the distinguished chair of the Permanent Council, the Secretary General, and all of the distinguished delegations present, and to welcome as Vice President of the Commission to Commissioner Ensenali. Very welcome. We've got a lot of work for you to do. And I would like to extend my greetings to Ambassador Encinas, who is rapporteur for Mexico. Will very much look forward to working with you. And I would also like to thank the commissions of Colombia and Chile for jointly asking to include this topic as an agenda item for today's meeting. The Commission is honored that the two states that pushed for consultations that led to Advisory Opinion 32 of 2025 from the Inter-American Court on Climate Emergency and Human Rights are once again supporting an issue of particular importance and are renewing their trust in the Inter-American human rights system. As Rapporteur for Human Mobility at the IACHR, I would like to begin by stating that nowadays it is not easy to discuss human mobility. At the IACHR, we are well aware of the many challenges this issue poses for the states of the Americas, for countries of origin, in transit, or destination. Today, I would like to focus on one of these main challenges, perhaps one of the most invisible, despite the fact that it impacts all of the countries of the hemisphere. That is migration driven by the adverse effects of climate change, disasters, and environmental degradation. our region is highly vulnerable to climate events. Annually, we're seeing storms, hurricanes, floods, rising sea levels, extreme droughts, and wildfires. And that's just to cite a few examples. Additionally, as a result of the climate emergency, we have been seeing how these meteorological phenomena are increasing in both intensity and frequency. All of these incidents tied to meteorological events weaken the already fragile social and economic processes and intensify conditions of vulnerability that force people to migrate. According to figures from the Internal Displacement Monitoring Center, in 2024 alone, more than 13 million people were displaced in the region as a result of extreme weather events. To put the dimensions of this phenomenon into perspective, this figure is 9 times greater than the number of people displaced by violence in the same year. Faced with this silent but transformational reality in the region, the ICHR has drafted the resolution that I've come to present today. That is Resolution 224 on human mobility induced by climate change. This is the first and only document in the world prepared by a human rights body that addresses this complex, multi-causal, and heterogeneous type of mobility in a detailed and comprehensive manner. This IACHR initiative, adopted in December of last year, pursues a clear objective. That is, to guide the states of the region in developing regulations, programs, and public policies to protect the rights of people in the context of climate mobility. The resolution was developed through an open and participatory process. 15 states in the Americas sent information. We engaged in consultations with specialized international organizations and civil society. There were a total of, the result is a document that offers a total of 75 recommendations. And then it stands out for 2 reasons. First, it proposes an integral and comprehensive understanding of climate mobility. It examines all stages of displacement, from measures to prevent people or communities from having to migrate due to these impacts, to situations and measures that have to be adopted when displacement occurs, and the search for enduring solutions, particularly when people must return to the place of customary residence or must be relocated in a planned manner because of the effects of climate change. The second intent of the resolution is to make it easier for states and other stakeholders to understand the rights, duties, and obligations that correspond to each of the stages I laid out. And here I wanted to underscore that the resolution is not seeking to create new rights or new legal constructs. It is based on the main legal instruments and developments of the system, and it takes up pre-existing obligations. Before concluding, I wanted to invite you to share this distributed. I just wanted to highlight 2 components. First, the need to produce data and facilitate access to information. Without any empirical evidence on the number of people who are migrating due to the effects of climate change, it is not possible to implement public policy. And secondly, bearing in mind that this tends to violate a series of rights for those who are displaced and the communities who receive displaced persons. The best recipe for protecting everyone is to adopt measures for prevention, mitigation, and adaptation. So I propose that you share and implement the resolution. At the Commission, we are aware of the difficulties and challenges that climate mobility poses to the countries of the region. And that is why We are at your disposal and offer you consultation mechanisms and technical support for all states that wish to implement the resolution on human mobility and on climate change. Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you, Commissioner Pochak, and congratulations on the work that you've done together with the Secretariat. We have Tanya Renaum up here. She is the Executive Director of the IACHR. And now I would like to offer the floor to our second panelist, Marco Alberto Romero, the Director of the Consultancy for Human Rights and Displacement. Mr. Romero, welcome to the Permanent Council. You have the floor. And I am pleased to see you once again. My greetings to the Ambassador of Chile and Tomas, and to the states, as well as staff of the OAS, as well as Commissioner Andrea Polchak, who has just presented the resolution. I would also like to recognize the important decision of Chile and Colombia today to add this to the agenda, to listen to the Commission and the voice of civil society. In human rights, we celebrate this resolution on human mobility induced by climate change. It is very important in the current global context because there are many who deny the evidence of climate change. This impacts the rights of millions of migrants, refugees, and displaced persons. The resolution provides some guidelines and recommendations for states and helps to close the gap in the deficit of protection of the rights of these individuals. The rapporteur for the UN on climate change and human rights also underscored this lack of protection, saying that climate change is a new structural cause and is part of the Declaration of Cartagena and the adoption of a new protocol to extend this protocol to cover refugees who are refugees and migrants for these reasons. In 2024, the countries of the region ratified the Cartagena Declaration, and this includes important recommendations and conclusions on the rights of persons displaced by disasters. This is important even though not much progress has been made thus far. This resolution is more direct and more comprehensive, taking a human rights approach, and it enjoys the advisory opinion that was recently issued by the Inter-American Court. We welcome the advances, the good practices shared by certain states. And I'm speaking from Colombia. There was a judgment 2024 of the Constitutional Court which safeguards the rights of persons impacted by weather events and empowers the Colombian state to adopt comprehensive policies. Yesterday, Colombia's Congress issued the first document of recognition on those impacted by weather and climate events. I wanted to underscore the way in which the resolution strengthens human rights. It recognizes that the climate crisis is a serious and grave threat. It impacts the social fabric of rural communities and their ability to make a living, but it also worsens some historic discrimination. These is the consequences of climate change and environmental degradation, and this for many reasons. This resolution recognizes that the climate crisis has a differentiated impact and impacts directly ecosystems and communities who rely on their connections to the land, their territorial and ancestral contact, and in the context of widespread violence and armed conflict, the environmental degradation is simply worsening other already difficult situations in Colombia. Those impacted by the climate crisis are also impacted by the armed conflict. The resolution shows how responsibilities vis-a-vis the crises are differentiated, and it calls upon states that contribute most to the crisis to make greater contributions in prevention internationally to support those impacted. So I would like to issue a call to all of the honorable delegations to have all states of the region to incorporate into your legislation the principles and guidelines contained in the resolution, Resolution 224, as well as the criteria included in the advisory opinion of the Inter-American Court. Thanks to these two bodies, the states now have voluntary recommendations and principles that they can implement. And this requires reinforced due diligence to prevent displacement and to support those who are forced to abandon their lands, and to ensure protection for those who need so, and to offer enduring solutions. The resolution is also an opportunity to coordinate regional responses and in the aftermath of human mobility induced by climate change. This represents a call to action and seek alternatives in terms of responsible conduct. In civil society, we welcome Resolution 224, guarantees of participation for communities and people who are most impacted. We wanted to especially recognize the inclusion of a special chapter on the defenders of people experiencing human mobility, especially in human rights defenders in the Americas, because we believe that human rights defenders are the cornerstone of the efforts to protect the rights of those experiencing mobility. And we hope that this resolution can be fully implemented to benefit all of those who are forced to abandon their homes, and to help us to surmount this very serious climate crisis that we're all facing. Thank you once again for this generous opportunity. Thank you for your intervention, Mr. Romero. I would now like to offer the floor to delegations that wish to speak to this point. Colombia, you have the floor. Thank you very much, Chair, for having accepted the proposal to include such a very important topic in today's agenda. At the end of the day, I think we can say that one of the main achievements of the year was the advisory opinion that Colombia and Chile requested. Colombia would like to begin by congratulating the panelists, Commissioner Polchak and Marco Romero, for their presentations and for the work they do on a daily basis to benefit all of those who are forced to migrate due to climate change and due to many different causes that drive human mobility. When we talk about climate change, mobility, we talk about real people, homes that are destroyed, lands that become fragile, and states that must act urgently and decisively. Resolution 2 from late last year that was just presented by Commissioner Pochak provides a clear framework that is based on rights, and it is aimed to orient our responses before, during, and after displacement, migration, or planned relocation. And it includes the reality of those who do not desire to move. There are 75 recommendations. We should all read each and every one of those. This instrument is consistent with some jurisprudence that we've seen in the region and is important as part of advisory opinion from the Inter-American Court. This is an interpretive standard. Even though it is an advisory opinion, it does serve to guide the development of legislation, policies, and implementation of the convention in our countries. I would like to share some national experiences in Colombia, including even before these instruments were created. In 2024, we had a judgment, an amparo judgment from our constitutional court, which recognized internal displacement from a number of factors, including climate change. And it urged the government to develop and adopt public policies to address the multi-causes of displacement and prioritize prevention, mitigation, and adaptation. This helped us to uncover deficits in protection and seek out government pathways to guarantee and protect rights. We heard from Marco Romero that yesterday a law was passed that takes into account the advisory opinion and this judgment issued by Colombia's Constitutional Court. No system of protection would be enough if we did not address the ethics of the challenge. As Gustavo Petro stated, the climate crisis is monumental injustice. Those who have emitted greenhouse gases, who have not emitted greenhouse gases, are the ones least capable of mitigation, and this is leading to mass exodus. In many cases, we're seeing the criminalization of human mobility and poverty. We cannot continue to ignore the fact that the current model of development is one of the culprits. It is unsustainable. The problem is not that we don't talk about climate change, it's the way in which we are addressing it. We've seen rhetoric about green capitalism, etc. We should read the resolution alongside the advisory opinion with the understanding that the climate crisis is a human rights crisis as well. We must adapt through measures that are equitable and differentiated so that they can have a high impact, creating public policies and legislative frameworks to implement these two tools. In the resolution 2022 of 24, as President Petro was saying, we know that the transition must be just and prohibit the expansion of economies based on fossil fuels. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ambassador, for your intervention. Brazil has the floor.
Brazil very much agrees that the adverse impacts of climate must be taken into account because they do affect most negatively the people who are most vulnerable. The efforts that have been deployed by the IACHR to develop standards through which we could consider different elements for human migration caused by climate as deep and ongoing routes for that migration is therefore something that we believe is necessary. And we agree with the latest decisions by the ICHR that the climate issue has a direct impact on social, political, and environmental conditions in our countries. Those who have to migrate in such circumstances are not, surprisingly, those most in a condition of precariousness. And that's why Brazil, as we look at the text of 224 of the ICHR declaration that was adopted, or resolution that was adopted by the ICHR recently, we think should be borne in mind. We need, as we have decided in Brazil, specific protection for those who are migrating as a result of environmental disasters. And we know that, as we have seen in Haiti, and we've seen it since the terrific earthquake of 2010, are now widely recognized in the international community as elements that must be borne in mind. In a ministerial meeting in Brazil in 2024, we adopted a several years-long program to pay particular attention to climate, and we are still members of the platform of Friends, BD2, that deal with these matters. Brazil, therefore, feels that the actual truth, the deep roots for migration, very often are, yes, socioeconomic reasons, yes, armed political issues, but let us not forget that there is also the weather conditions. But let us be careful to strike a balance as to the weight on the scales of each of these factors, and particularly where there are instances of arbitrary detention and various principles like the principle of non-refoulement to be borne in count. The condition of the migrant is a particular one that has been recognized for a very long time, and to which we believe, and I think we all in this room do believe, the issues of climate bear heavily. And alas, given the precarious situation of most of our national resources, it is something even more to be borne in mind. Very often, therefore, it's important that adaptation, transfer of technology, and additional support amongst us is important. But all of this does not mean that there are not sometimes other reasons why people get up and move. There are reasons. Yes, political crises, and armed uprisings. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Grenada has the floor.
Mr. Chair, distinguished colleagues, Grenada thanks the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights for Resolution number 224 and appreciates the presentations by Commissioner Andrea Pochak and Mr. Marco Romero. We also thank Colombia and Chile for bringing this important matter before the Council. For Grenada, climate change-induced human mobility is not a theoretical concern. As a tri-island small island developing state, we have experienced firsthand how extreme weather events translate into human displacement, disruption, and difficult choices for families and communities. Following Hurricane Beryl in 2024, Grenada was compelled to undertake costly and urgent relocations from affected areas, particularly within our smaller island communities, to safer locations. These movements were not permanent migrations, but they nonetheless disrupted schooling, access to livelihoods, and community cohesion, especially for children, workers dependent on the informal economy, and coastal populations. Even when temporary, such displacement carries lasting social and economic consequences. It is in this context that Grenada strongly welcomes the resolution's affirmation that human mobility induced by climate change must be addressed through a human rights-based approach, grounded in dignity, equality, and non-discrimination. We attach particular importance to three elements. First, the principle of climate justice. The resolution rightly acknowledges that those who have contributed least to climate change often suffer its gravest human impacts. For SIDS, this reinforces the need for solidarity, cooperation, and differentiated responsibilities within the inter-American system. Second, the emphasis on prevention, adaptation, and protection against forced displacement, including recognition of people in situations of immobility. The Grenadian experience confirms that relocation must remain a measure of last resort, undertaken with participation, adequate information, and respect for cultural and social ties. Third, the reaffirmation of non-refoulement and access to protection, clarifying how existing human rights obligations apply in climate-related contexts without creating new legal duties. Mr. Chair, Grenada views Resolution number 224 as a timely and practical tool to guide states toward humane, coordinated responses to climate mobility, responses that place people, communities, and rights at the center. I thank you, Chair.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Comida, for your remarks. Chile has the floor. Thank you very much, Chair. The delegation of Chile would first like to begin by commending the delegation of Colombia as a co-sponsor of this item on the agenda, as well as our commitment to this matter, which is long-standing. We'd also like to thank the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights for having printed Resolution 224 on human mobility induced by climate change. This is a key instrument at a crucial juncture for the hemisphere. We must address this phenomenon from a human rights perspective. We would like to thank Commissioner Andrea Polchak and Mr. Romero for your excellent presentations, as well as your tireless work to move forward in protecting rights. And Chile recognizes human mobility caused by climate change. We know that it exacerbates already existing vulnerabilities and weaknesses. Climate mobility is very complex and multi-causal. There's violence, inequality, and insecurity are a part of this. From our standpoint, it is important to establish inter-American standards that are clear. This resolution provides guidelines for the development of comprehensive public policies that address each phase of the cycle of displacement, as well as state duties in this case. As the ISHR stated, it is about addressing persistent issues in the recognition of human rights in this area. Chile has taken an active leadership role in seeking legal and regional ways of addressing this. That's why we asked, together with Colombia, for an advisory opinion from the court on human mobility induced by climate change. This was adopted in May of 2025 and notified in July of this year. This is a historic milestone for the region. Likewise, under Chile's chairmanship and the vice chairmanship of Mexico, the countries of Latin America and the Caribbean at the end of November had a meeting on a platform, the Plan of Action for Chile, that is part of the Cartagena Plus 40 process. We talked about the causes of displacement that are caused increasingly about disasters and climate change events. It includes actions of how to address this through the perspective of protection. Human mobility, Mr. Chairman, is transnational. It requires coordination at a binational, regional, and international level. And so Resolution 224 is a key tool in advancing in the protection of people's rights in this area. We are committed to finding a consistent and comprehensive approach in the inter-American system as part of Chile's plan of action. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chile. Guatemala now has the floor.
Muchas gracias. Thank you very much, Chair. The delegation of Guatemala would also like to express its thanks to Commissioner Andrea Pocha, the rapporteur on human mobility within the IACHR, for the presentation of Resolution 024 on human mobility as a result of climate change and the efforts undertaken to understand and to come to a comprehensive solution thereto. We also thank Marco Alberto Romero, a rapporteur on that very subject. Guatemala understands that this resolution serves as a guidepost and, frankly, a means forward through us all. Rules, principles, and guarantees from the part of each of our states and how these may comport with the basic principles of the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights is key. Human mobility is something with which we all have an opinion, and the famous Paris Agreement that has been adopted by UNESCO and the accords that have been adopted in that regard to mitigate, to adapt, and to consider risks are all to be borne in mind. Guatemala, for its part, is working on developing a resolution. We're terming it 3.0, which is quite ambitious over the rest of this year and the next year, that speak directly to adaptation and climate conditions in the agricultural sector and others. We are setting forth a national plan on climate change. Each of our governmental institutions is to look at how gender perspectives, indigenous peoples, groups in particular vulnerability are all elements, again, to be borne in mind. Adaptation to climate change is key. We understand how critical it is to ensure that the most vulnerable communities can be the most resilient, because they've got to be, particularly if there are extreme conditions that will bear very greatly on their lives, never mind their mobility. The 2026-2030 program that's been set up within the UN system includes such principles as environmental sustainability, climate resistance, and the means by which humans can adapt to vulnerable conditions. These are commitments that have been adopted at an international level, and that includes Guatemala. It means that we understand, and certainly we in Guatemala underscore the fact that there is no one-size-fits-all. There are different elements that must be taken into account, and we must be data-oriented when we come up with our public policies to ensure that any action taken to support human mobility and the preservation of human life must be within the context of basic human rights principles. We believe that this element is something very valuable, and it is so not least because the human rights principles which we purport to uphold have to comport with climate change. Guatemala, for its part, is committed to ensuring that its own institutional frameworks will continue to promote equality and non-discrimination at all levels of government and in the international sphere, so that best practices can be shared and we can all come up with lasting solutions. Thanks very much. Thank you, Ambassador. Mexico is recognized next. Thank you. Well, let me begin, first of all, by thanking Andrea Pochak, the rapporteur of the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights on Human Mobility, and consultant Marcos Romero for the presentation of Resolution 224 of the IACHR on human mobility induced by climate change. Mexico believes that human dignity, justice, human rights, within the context of the migration panorama, is absolutely key. And it's within that framework, within that perspective, that we look at how climate change is affecting the way humans move from one place to another, and how certain very important elements, like life itself, can be put at risk. So people in a situation of vulnerability must remain foremost in our thoughts. Thank you for Chile and others who have been working on Resolution 224 on human mobility as triggered by climate change, and how all of this focuses on the human rights perspective that quite properly should undergird such decisions. The Inter-American Commission on Human Rights back in 2024 looked at this. Mexico is very sure that the resolution that was adopted at the time is still relevant as it regards human mobility, and we stand ready and willing to cooperate with anyone who needs to work with us to ensure that people who are most vulnerable are those who are helped, not least women, young children, and small babies. Mexico thinks that this is a very valuable instrument for us to move forward because it consolidates various legal parameters and customary practice within this hemisphere with regard to human rights and climate change. Resolution 0321, which is entitled Climate Change and the Inter-American Human Rights and Consulted Opinion 3225 of the court, as well as the full resistance of the full support of the texts of human rights. The Paris Accord, the Paris Agreement on sure and safe migration, the Sendai Agreement, the Nansen Initiative, and the initiative of the United Nations on climate change, inter alia as regards international law, most properly should be borne in mind as we each seek to strengthen our institutional frameworks, recognizing that the mobility of the human being as linked to climate change is something here to stay. So let's remember in that context gender issues and how we can best plan for resilience in the collection of data. Mexico, for its part, stands ready to work hand in glove with others, the Inter-American Association on Migrations, and with decision makers throughout the world, looking at the nexus between migration, climate change, and how public strategies can best be tailored to each of the countries depending on their geographic, topographic position, and socioeconomic profiles. Mr. Chairman, in sum, we are very pleased with the support that the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights through Resolution 224 puts before us, and we consider that the various elements that have been focused on are very pertinent in the framing of our own policies. There has to be a better way to support and protect the human rights of those who are pushed to get up and move because of climate change throughout this hemisphere. Climate change means that we must think of climate justice and shared responsibility and the well-being of us all. Thank you.
Tiene la palabra Costa Rica.
Thank you very much. Costa Rica is next. Very good afternoon, Chair. Costa Rica is also very grateful to the IACHR for the presentation of Resolution 0224 on human mobility caused by climate change. This is a text that gives us a number of very key issues that affect us all. We're very grateful to Colombia and Chile, who have pushed for this dialogue to take place and for there to be more coherent and more cohesive policies at the length and breadth of this hemisphere. We know that migration is here to stay, displacement, forced displacement even, is an issue that no one here can say does not affect them at all. There are three elements we think need to be borne in mind. The comprehensive nature of human mobility that this resolution sets forth is one, adaptation to climate change, the need for people to look for lasting solutions and protection in these circumstances, are all key. But let's not forget that prevention and mitigation is one thing, and protection and assistance to people is another, and yet another is the whole question of public policy and public-private association. We're looking at standards that already exist in the Inter-American system, particularly those flying by the Inter-American Commission of Human Rights and the American Declaration itself. These texts undergird the reason why we must be careful as we look at normative measures taken and the management of risk in connection with these various elements. That was a second point. And thirdly, we think there has to be differentiated appreciations as to how women or indigenous peoples or Afro-descendants, migrants, the elderly, or persons with disability, these special groups must be considered. So the responses must be both differentiated and as simple and as straightforward as possible. All of that notwithstanding, Costa Rica does understand that these various standards put a very high bar on what each of us can do. And that's where interinstitutional cooperation and the absolute need to have the right information comes to play. The OAS, therefore, would do well to continue to foster good dialogue and best practices to be shared amongst the member states, and particularly including REDESCA and the IACHR. Costa Rica here affirms its cooperation on policies that are based on people, human mobility, and sustainable development. We recognize, of course, that mobility, as forced by climate change, is by definition transnational. By definition, therefore, calls for shared responsibility and equality without discrimination. Now, Chair, to conclude, Costa Rica also recognizes that human mobility as a result of climate change is by definition transnational. Who can stop the weather? That's why we all have to put our heads together and come up with something that will see us forward. We thank the IACHR for its input, and we appreciate the forum that is given in that context for us to continue considering how we, for our part, from this room, can do best to come up with policies that are people-centered and that will do our best to allow us to defend ourselves of the climate challenge. Thank you. Thank you very much, Costa Rica. Uruguay is next. Thank you. Thank you very much to the ICHR for the adoption of the resolution 2/24 on human mobility as triggered by climate change. It giving us the opportunity to speak up and see how best we can work together to face these challenges. The Inter-American system is lucky to have operational standards that we can call upon and understanding in the best good faith the commitments we each have undertaken in the Inter-American Declaration on Human Rights and all of the other basic Inter-American conventions, we can only consider how best we can shore up deep-rooted vulnerability. The resolution recognizes this. And the impact of these situations is quite differentiated. People are not all affected in the same way. Children, LGBTQA, boys, girls, old women, younger women, or men for that matter, forced migration, and so many other situations that leave their imprint on how and why people get up and go. So displacement, as we look at here, I think, and we think in Uruguay, needs to be looked at with particular attention on long-standing solutions, always on the basis of equality and non-discrimination. At the national level, Uruguay has been doing what it can to come up with a public policy framework that is based on these elements, based on climate change and policies that put us in a better position to face natural disasters, not least for those who live in areas that are going to be continually prone to danger and challenges of this kind. We need to look at how we can reach out to ensure that these individuals, indeed that all individuals, can aspire to a life of dignity. This resolution, we believe, does well to focus on these steps as a natural obligation of the state with a capital S. So all of this needs to be considered, we believe, quite distinct from the migratory status, because climate change affects everybody within a country and across borders. Let us not forget that there are ongoing challenges too, pointed out quite properly in this resolution, inter alia, the need to consider the interinstitutional support to territorial, migratory, and climate considerations, the importance of coming up with disaggregated statistics and archives that will make it easier to pinpoint the risks of displacement in a timely fashion, and how best the communities can help those most in need. That is why this isn't over. We're going to have to keep putting our heads together and seeing how the existing frameworks are fitting the bill. What can we do better to face climate change? That's the bottom line. Resolution 224 is a good step forward in helping the states come up with coherent solutions that are rooted in human rights respect and effective help to the people who need it, both within a country and among countries. This has to be a shared responsibility because it is a shared risk. For our part, we will continue working with all of you, with the IACHR and all of the other entities of the OAS and their public authorities to see how best we can do better for people everywhere, wherever they may be or decide to move to. Thank you. Thank you, Uruguay. Panama is recognized next. Thank you. The Republic of Panama is very pleased to have Resolution 0224 of the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights to discuss, which discusses human mobility as triggered by climate change. This is a matter that is certainly of increasing importance, not only for our region, but I would say for the entire of the Americas, from north to south. Thank you to Colombia and Chile especially for asking that this item be on our agenda at this regular session of the Permanent Council today. It speaks to everyone's recognition that we've got to talk about this, put our heads together to make a difference. Let us begin then by thanking Commissioner Andrea Bochak, the rapporteur on human mobility of the IACHR, for her very clear and very in-depth analysis of this matter, pointing out the present and emerging profile of these challenges. The same goes for Alberto Marco Romero, who is the head of the Rapporteur on Human Rights Displacement, for the technical approach that he offers with regard to civil society. This in no way diminishes the complexity of the matter. On the contrary, it does well to focus on it. But, Chair, this resolution is of particular importance, we believe, because it recognized that the adverse impact of climate change, the extreme changes that can happen by the rising sea levels, by so many other ways in which our civilization is making a difference, not least to human mobility, we have got to look at cross-border and very vulnerable situations such that opportune solutions that are focused on human rights are being put in practice, not just any old potential solution. We know something about this in Panama. We are in a highly vulnerable area, as you might know, with regard to climate change. And that is why a preventive, a humanitarian, a focus, and one that is deeply rooted in human rights and solidarity is something that we uphold, not just from the standpoint of migration, but as for what it is. It's a multidimensional challenge. We have to look at risks, we have to look at climate adaptation, and we must not forget human rights. State resolutions with a capital S must put people at the center. The human rights of people who are having to move have to be considered, not least because they've got to move. They can't stay where they are. This affects women, boys and girls, indigenous peoples, and communities that are very deeply dependent on their natural resources for their very livelihoods. These must be borne in mind. So resilience is key. Resilience in those communities of origin. And let us be careful about displaced and forced displacement, where people are simply looking for a place to live. Resolution 0224, we believe, offers an intersectoral, a very comprehensive view of how this human mobility can be looked at in terms of human rights and sustainable conditions. It's a coherent approach, we believe, that tallies with the commitments that we have underwritten in the 2030 program for sustainable development and our own human rights conventions, so that the solutions that are offered can be solutions in the long term and not just a cute band-aid to get out of the problem at that particular time. Technical assistance is key. Nobody can go it alone. I think we all know that. And climate change affects us all. Human mobility affects us all. There is where the IICHR has a prime role to play. I should say a key way forward, so that there is a framework that can offer a better adapted program to the challenges that none of us can deny. Panama is here committed to multilateralism, to constructive dialogue, and to the strengthening of the Inter-American system of human rights. We thank the Inter-American Commission yet again, and Commissioner Andrea Pochak and Mr. Alberto Romero, and the delegations of Colombia and Chile for allowing us this time to put our heads together and see how best we can move forward. This isn't over. We've got to keep at it with a spirit of solidarity, and certainly a spirit that is respectful of human dignity, and that means everybody. Thank you. Thank you, Ambassador. Canada is recognized next. Thank you very much, Chair. Canada wishes to begin by thanking the delegations of Colombia and Chile for having suggested that we consider this issue on our agenda today. We are equally grateful to Commissioner Pochak and Mr. Romero for their input. Canada is absolutely convinced that better cooperation among states and tighter cooperation amongst the Inter-American entities is key, particularly where human mobility as triggered by climate change is concerned. Climate change and the reasons for it have to be borne in mind, not least in the case of migration assistance.
Mobility must be an integral part of climate discussions, including within the framework of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. particularly with respect to the loss and damage mechanism. Investments in capacity building and climate adaptation represent one of the most important tools available to states to address the challenges of climate-related mobility. Adaptation is essential for those who wish to remain in their communities, but it can also make migration a choice rather than a necessity, enabling people to move with dignity and security. In this regard, Canada supports international capacity building projects aimed at strengthening knowledge and evidence on the impacts of climate change on migration and displacement, while also supporting concrete adaptation and resilience building efforts. By way of example, in recent years, Canada has supported the expansion of climate migration programming in Mexico through its international climate finance portfolio, via a new initiative implemented with the International Organization for Migration and the Rainforest Alliance. This project sought to address the nexus between migration, the environment, and climate change in rural agricultural communities by promoting safe and sustainable livelihoods, facilitating access to ethical employment opportunities in the agro-industrial sector, and strengthening the governance and policy-making capacities of local authorities to better manage migration dynamics. Finally, Canada is a strong champion of the Global Compact for Safe, Orderly, and Regular Migration. This international framework reflects a collective commitment to promote safe and dignified migration pathways, including in context of natural disasters, environmental degradation, and climate change. By investing in collaboration and drawing on our collective expertise, we will be able to be better equipped to address the complex challenges of climate-induced human mobility and to develop innovative solutions for the benefit of more resilient communities that are better prepared to face future challenges. Thank you, Chair.
Muchas gracias.
Canada, thank you very much indeed for that statement. There appear to be no further requests for the floor, ladies and gentlemen, so it remains for me to thank each of you for being here, and certainly for the members of the Executive Secretary, the Rapporteur on Human Mobility, representing the ICHR itself, and the Consultant on Human Rights and Displacement. Thanks for your statements, and thanks to each of you who have chosen to speak today. The Chair suggests that the Permanent Council take good note of each of these statements, all of which, of course, will be in the minutes. If there is no objection, it is so decided, ladies and gentlemen. It is 12:58 on the nose. And since the break is scheduled for 13 hours, I think we can stop here and come back with item 6 at 14:30. That's 2:30 in the afternoon, where we'll speak about Haiti and the mission of the OAS there. So, bon appétit.